Welcome to Defacto Review, our weekly in-depth review of the current news and affairs with our commentator and economist, Jargal Defacto.
Good evening.
And I'm Namsretsend. We are live on MNB World Facebook page. You can join us on Mr. Jargal Defacto's Twitter with hashtag Jargal_Defacto. And for our today's program, visit of the Russian and US Ministers of Defense. ABC traffic zones to reduce traffic jam in the capital. Performance report of Oyu Tolgoi for second quarter of 2019. And for our first topic, Ministers of Defense of the US and Russia visited Mongolia last week. The President of Mongolia, Batol Khatma, visited the United States of America. Russian Deputy Minister of Defense visited Mongolia in the same week. Number of high-level visits are certainly attracting people's attention. So our first question is, the US Deputy Minister of Defense visited Mongolia, and just a month ago, National Security Advisor of the United States, John Bolton, also visited Mongolia. Could you tell our audience about the importance of these visits?
First of all, it was a Minister of Defense, head of Pentagon, visited Mongolia, and Deputy Minister of Defense of Russia also visited, coincidentally almost on the same day. What is the importance of the Minister of Defense of US to Mongolia? I would say the regional importance. His trip, a spare's trip to Mongolia, comes at a particular interesting time in the relations, tensions in the relations between the US and China, and which in between them the trade war is escalating. Last year, the US military had changed strategy. Instead of fight against Islamist militants, last year the US changed the priority and strategy into countering China and Russia. That's the defense strategy. Mongolia has been a consistent US military partner, providing troops to US-led missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. And currently there are 200,000 troops of Mongolia there in Afghanistan. Also, Mongolians are in a peacekeeping, UN peacekeeping part in Sudan. Mongolia has also diplomatic relations with North Korea, and Washington could leverage, as Trump seeks for another meeting with Pyongyang. And also Mongolia has a direct railway line connection with North Korea. So under these circumstances, and they also, after the statement of, in particular, the Russians had paid more attention to that, about the installment of medium-range nuclear heads in Asia, because the Americans have withdrawn from the treaty with Russia. So under all the circumstances, that's what this meeting had happened.
So why are these high-level visits happening one after another?
No, because the Russian deputy deputy defense minister have visited to the end of the military training between our four countries, Kazakhstan, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia. It was the horse unit of the army, and it was one of those series of trainings organized in between these countries. So at the end of this game, military game 2019 series of them, ended in, he had visited to that end, to the ceremony of finishing that things. And I think the American Defense Secretary visit also was covering Australia, Japan, and others, South Korea and Mongolia. And it just coincided with that event, and our Minister of Defense had met Mr. Esper and Deputy Minister Mr. Dolumderj had met with the Russian counterpartner. So that's what happened.
So some Russian news pages posted that the United States might install their missile systems in Mongolia. Is this really valid information?
What happened was Esper in his tweet said that U.S. needs to install medium-range nuclear heads rocket nearby in Asia. That was his statement in Twitter. And in fact, last year, President Trump announced that U.S. is withdrawing from the treaty with Russia. As according to the U.S. President, Russia was violating that treaty by producing the rockets of land-based rockets of medium distance, which is about 500, from 500 kilometer to 5,000 kilometer distance, and they were reproducing their weapons and locating them, and the Russian military has already in their possession several of those rockets. So U.S. was withdrawing unilaterally from that treaty, and also U.S. announced that they have installed their nuclear rocket in Alaska. So because of this statement, Russians, in particular several Russian authors and TV stations were saying that Mongolia is a backward country and Mongolia is a good location for them to install that weapons. Only problem is they don't understand the reality of Mongolian foreign policy. Mongolian foreign policy is forbidding to have any weapons from other countries on our territory. We will not allow even transit through the territory. And it was, the initiative was just announced after the Russian troops, Soviet Union troops, withdraw from Mongolia early 90s. In 1992, Mongolia had announced this new policy, and it was approved by the parliament in 2002. And since that, Mongolia will not allow anybody any weapons, nuclear weapons in particular, to be allocated and or transited through the territory of Mongolia. So if they know about that, by the way, this nuclear-free country strategy was supported by the UN as well, and Mongolia will not do it. And plus, I mean, we may be a little bit not very much developed country, but we not to be that not smart to have somebody's rocket on our territory, so that the Russia or whoever is just directing their weapons towards to us. So we will not allow that, and Mongolia will not do that. So that's my comment.
So it is not only nuclear weapons, but also weapons from other countries that is...
Yes, because we are a neutral country. We have announced in our foreign policy that. And more than that, Mongolia is the only country in between two nuclear giants which keep testing their rockets nearby our border. So we really, we request our guarantee of our security by our two neighbors.
I see. So we talked about the recent high-level visits. Now onto our next topic about the traffic zones. Is implementing zone systems in the capital city a rational decision? The authorities of the Ulaanbaatar is going to implement, it's in a process of the zone system and separating the roads into A, B, C zones. Currently works to inform the public about it, as well as receiving polls, is underway until the 15th of August. The final decision is not really made, and it is unknown when the zone system will be enforced. So our first question is, if the zone system is implemented in the capital city, will it really affect the traffic jam problems?
one, the new zoning system into A, B, C, meaning the center to be A and the wider B, even wider C. That is proposal by the City Department of Transportation. But that proposal, I think, will not be implemented in near future. But however, the problem is there. Everybody who lives in this city understands the problem. They know, they feel it every day, sitting in their car. So now we have about 500,000 cars registered in Ulaanbaatar city, out of which, say, 300,000 are in traffic. And they are stuck. If they are stuck, all of them, for the 1 hour, then we spend about 100 billion degrees for nothing, just destroying the air, cleanness and clarity. And so the problem is there, but whether zoning will decide or not, but we need to have some certain measures that reduce the traffic jam. What we have been so far doing was they were limiting by the plate numbers, the last digits of plate numbers, and about 20% of the car on each working day don't go to the street. So in that way, within 5 working days, we have a limited amount of car. But however, we have keep increasing the amount of cars, cheap. Majority of the cars are all Japanese cars. 80% of Mongolian cars are more than 10 years old, and with a couple $1,000, Mongolians can buy all 10 or more years old Japanese right-hand Prius cars, which are creating a big problem in the town because this is the country of the right-hand traffic movement. But the majority of cars are like this, so it increases the incidents in the country. That's one thing. The second thing is now the city authority is going to make certain measures around the parking in the center. Now all parkings will be paid parking. They have a toll, and if you stay there longer, you pay more. But in the proposal, there was every 2 hours you need to change car or repark it, which was quite not very smart things. So the third, we need to develop more public transports. This kind of things only help the traffic jam in this town. The final one is, instead of going by the plates, by the last digits of the plates, the city authority also suggests to go on even days go with even plate and numbers, and the odd day, the vice versa. But in both cases, it will help, but not completely solve the issue of traffic jam in Ulaanbaatar.
So according to this new proposal, the rural area vehicles cannot move through the city centers.
This is one of, I think the person who was doing that press conference was a bit nervous, because he said that, we cannot accommodate Ulaanbaatar city, and why we should allow the cars from region to go through the center. It was quite discriminatory statement. First, a lot IMAC provinces, people have Ulaanbaatar plates. No clear restrictions on that. They can come and receive plates from Ulaanbaatar, which doesn't play any sense in the case if they implement that rule. But looks like it will not work. But the best solution to traffic jam of the country is one. It's economic issue. Economic issue is solved by market. Political issue solved by democracy. So the best solution of the traffic is money. And like in Singapore, they have zones. As soon as you go into the particular zones, you pay more, and the bill is coming afterwards, because every car is read by the camera, and they send you invoice. And the same with the parking. So that's something that we cannot avoid, in spite of non-popularity, in spite of seemingly inequality approach of the issue.
Why aren't the authorities taking other solutions to this problem, such as they could ban the number of car imports, or improving the public transportation system?
Eventually, they're going to do that, but because it's a democratic country, because the politicians think only for 4 years of election term, and they do not take drastic measures like this banning import of old cars, certain age old cars, or having more taxes on that. They don't do it because the election issue, and slowly they have to do it anyway. And they also should do it, for example, to develop more public transportation. The majority of people have no choice but no to commute by car. So the result, of course, is a gridlock. Instead of transit-oriented development, we need development-oriented transits. First, so public transport. Second, encourage companies to adopt flexible work hours, because all organizations come at the same time to the office, all we go to the traffic jam at the same time. It's need to be changed. And the third, we need to develop alternative cities, other cities, because nearby the prime major city should be the optimal to be is twice times more than the second largest city. By that criteria, if you see, Darhang is the second largest city in the country, 250,000 people, but Ulaanbaatar is 1.5 million, or 7 times more. So 5 times more, 6 times. So anyway, we need to develop alternative city, second city nearby. We need to develop probably Darhang into the competition to Ulaanbaatar. It's to be center of certain, maybe if not political, then economic or education. To the policy we tried before, but now it is to be more concentrated, and we need to develop other cities.
Well, the DG system you mentioned is only implemented in only few countries of the world, such as Malaysia, but there are still some countries dealing with same problem as ours, for example, India. And how do they combat? What measures do they take to reduce the traffic jams?
Sooner or later, whether they will like or not, we need to really restrict the amount of cars in the city. That's what the other countries do. They do it by more economic measures. For example, they increase taxes on new cars. Singapore, for example, have certain number of cars that to be at any moment to be in Singapore. And so, how does it work? You, as a Singaporean, have a car. Your plate is valid for next 10 years since the time you obtained. But after 10 years, you still need to buy that plate right again if you want still to continue that possession or property right. So every 10 years, the car bidding prices keep increasing. In that way, the city, country limits the car. Sooner or later, Mongolia is to that direction to come, in particular restrict right-hand all Japanese cars. It's going to be happening very soon. Otherwise, there is no choice. There's no other choice, and we cannot go anymore in this city, everybody with a car. So, but first of all, we need to develop that public transportation into the brand new level, which Thailand does, India is trying to do. And they have a special line for the buses. It's air trains are there, etc. So one of those methods to be used. On the other hand, if you keep increasing the quality of a road, the car amount is keep increasing following. So it is not a matter of to go, it naturally happens. So that's why we need to limit the cars.
I see. So we talked about the traffic zones in the capital. Now on to our next topic about Oyu Tolgoi's performance report. Oyu Tolgoi announced performance update for the second quarter of 2019. News about Oyu Tolgoi's underground mine project being delayed due to budget blowout was announced not so long ago. But this week they presented the company's performance update for the second quarter of the 2019 to the public. Company executives made a statement about the underground mine project and the new power station. So, Our first question for this is, what were the highlights from this performance report?
Yeah, before that Oyu Tolgoi performance report, I would like to quote Mr. Jean-Jacques Sebastien, CEO of Rio Tinto, statement a week earlier, because that statement made the shares of Oyu Tolgoi turquoise Hill Resources shares go down to the level, historic low level. Jean-Jacques Sebastien said that for last year, Rio Tinto, the giant, mining giant, made $5 billion profit, about $5 billion profit, which is 12% increase year-on-year basis. It is because the 60% of Rio Tinto is now, this is ferrum.
So, about the highlights of this report.
Yeah, but because 60% of consisting of metal, tumur.
Yeah, metal elements, metal ores.
Yeah, it's ferrum ores, and because the price on that commodity have increased 65%, their profit had increased to that level. However, also he had made a statement about the delay in the project of Oyu Tolgoi, but however he said that this project, because it has a very good name, priority, very good reputation in the same mining line, they are not very much concerned, though they're going to be about $2 billion cost increased and 2.5 years extended, prolonged the day of beginning of production, because the geotechnical issues, it turned out the ore body turned out different than the expected, different than in the feasibility study, meaning that they need more strengthening the mine. So that's why the cost is coming, which is happening about with the more than half of the major projects like this, mining projects in the world. As I said, the share price went down. However, what happened last week, as you said, the report of the executives of OT was more encouraging.
So, what did the company executives said about this underground mine project? And could you tell us more about the power station?
Yeah, well, first of all, the executive CEO of Oyu Tolgoi, Torres Armando, said that in first half a year of 2019, OT is still keeping their first place by safety among all the Rio Tinto group mines. First, secondly, they have joined the volunteer codex of a responsible mine. The third, they have named the open pits after late Karamjev, who was one of the person to discover the field, the OT deposit. The third, because the new initiative of engineers there, the underground mine progressed for another 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer in horizontal directions, which is a great work. You can imagine 1.5 kilometer law in the ground, and they have done another 1,000 meter corridor. It is a great work. I was in the mine. I was very impressed with the way how mostly Mongolian, 95% Mongolians, engineers, workers, they're doing their jobs, excellent jobs. And also another statement they made was for the half a year, they spent $222 million for local procurement. That's a very substantial amount. If 180 days, $222 million, $1.2 million a day about money dollar is coming to the economy, which helps Mongolia to keep, Mongol Bank to keep the exchange rate, which is substantial, not much substantial change, though it is a little bit, it's upline trend. What else? They said that they have produced about 40,000 tons of copper. It is 0.6% less than last year. And also they produced 72,000 ounce, it's about 2 tons, gold, which is for this half a year, which is almost 44% increase compared with the last year, which is quite a remarkable achievement. And so these are the more or less production landmarks of the company. Looks like the company is doing what they're supposed to do, except the change of the conditions of our body, and hopefully with the joint work of government and executives, the things will go ahead in the normal path. Lastly, about the power stations, they have principally agreed to make the long-awaited coal bed power station, electric power stations at TT, Oyu Tolgoi, and final estimation of feasibility studies, I understand, now being completed, and it is better sooner for Mongolians than later, because Oyu Tolgoi is paying about $250 million for Inner Mongolia power supplier every year, and the faster the electric power stations will be built in Mongolia, it will be better. But however, because this extension of the project, due to this change, geotechnical change, because also the power stations, coal bed power stations construction need, OT will need more money, probably on the capital market. Also because the power stations like this are not financed anymore by AAA banks in the world due to the climate change, other concerns. So it is not to be easy pass this time, but however, the way how the company is performing gives us a hope that they will do the jobs on time.
Okay, so, well, that was all the time we had for today. Thank you for watching Defacto Review on MNB World.
Thank you very much.
We will see you next week.